It tells people very clearly what to do and what's going to happen when they click that section. Another, and I've pulled this website from a community foundation, but menu options, a good menu will tell you where you currently are and let you navigate to other sections of the site. So what I really liked about this navigation here is that I think it's very clear, and it also has this little arrow at the top above home where it tells you where you are. So in any given section, you know exactly where you are and how to navigate away from that. And it's also a good idea for the sake of removing confusion. If you have the page title, when I click on About Us on this website, I want to look at a page where the title is About Us or something very similar about the Comox Valley Community Foundation. When I click on For Donors, I want to have the title of that page be For Donors so that I'm not confused about where I've just ended up. So make sure that your page titles for your main landing pages associated with your navigation match the titles you've got in your navigation. And I didn't want to commend the Comox Valley Community Foundation because this was something that I did find in a lot of community foundation websites that I was looking at, is that you want to make sure that the key information for your organization is part of the main navigation for your site. And what I really liked about this website is that they didn't hide their stories, right? So much of the important work that community foundations do is the partnerships and the grants that you give to your local community. And for some websites, I found that information very much hidden. It's either a list on a section of the website called grants that I would think that as someone who is a member of the community, a potential donor, looking for what kind of impact my dollars are going to have, or a member of the media that is looking to profile the organization and the impact that you guys are having on the community, I would think that a section called grants is a little bit ambiguous. I understand as a charity that's where I want to go to apply for grants and find out information for how to apply, but I think in terms of your other audiences, you want to make this information very clear. And touched, or our impact, or something along those lines was right in their main navigation for all visitors to their website to see. And it goes to this very attractive page where people can find out more about the impact that this community foundation is having on the community. So you don't want to hide this information either under a very ambiguous heading or deep into the navigation of your website. So make sure all your important information is along that first layer. All right, so now that we've kind of settled on the organization of your website, the next thing I want to talk about more generally is the design of your website, and really about how to design with your audience in mind. This includes, so when we talk about design, we're talking about the layout of information on a website, the use of the graphics and the text, and where to place your menu items. And I think this example that I've pulled from the Red Deer Community Foundation is great. There's no information that is too overpowering on this website. Our eyes are drawn into the images and the donate buttons, which is very good. That's where we want to be drawn in. I know where to click. People are very used to seeing a menu up at the top here, so I'm not confused about that. And I know that generally we rely on website developers and graphic designers to develop this aspect of our site, and I think that's really good. I don't think all of us have to become experts in website design, nor should we. We're experts in other things, of course. But I do want to caution people around kind of just going with a designer's suggestion or a web developer's suggestion. I think especially graphic designers get really excited about adding flashy design at the expense of usability. And usability really doesn't have a lot to do with graphics and the size of the text and the all these kind of fun, interesting things. It has to do with kind of the boring basics about where our eye goes and contrast and the size of graphics on the site. So really, I think that as long as your website is usable and user-friendly, then it's okay to go with the designer's suggestion. But I have this website that I wanted to share as a bad example, and this is actually the Yale School of Design, I think, or Yale Art School. And they obviously have a particular audience that they're trying to cater to. But from a usability perspective, this is a pretty terrible website. And I don't think they would lose any of the edginess if they designed it in a way that was more pleasing. If, you know, everyone knows that yellow and black is very hard to read. Having this, you know, confusing and distracting background graphic is really awful. In terms of conveying information. So this is a case where they probably let students design this, or have some, you know, rotating design from their arts community. But artisticness and usability don't always meet eye to eye, and some of the worst websites are those for web developers and graphic designers. So think first about usability, because that will respond to the actual needs of your users. And some of the things to think about when you are thinking about the design of your website is to use standard fonts and proper sizes. There are reasons why certain fonts are the ones that everyone uses. It is because they are easy to read, they're easy on the eye, and they're, you know, we can understand, you know, when you read them, they don't hurt the eyes, whereas this one you have to really squint. Use proper contrast on your site. This is something that I did find on a few websites, that it is quite hard to read, you know, the green on the red background or a pale color on a white background. You want to make sure that all of the text on your website, you know, that isn't kind of a graphic, that is really where it's something that you would like people to read, is more dark text, preferably black text on a white background with a standard and usually sans serif font, so an Arial or a Calibri, some sort, or a Helvetica, some kind of standard sans serif font. Especially, of course, if you have an older user base and you know that you've got people who are, you know, a little on the senior side, this is a, you know, much easier text to read. So the next thing to think about is the white space on your website, and this is basically all the empty space that you have on your site. And clearing out the empty space makes it easy for people to find the information that they're looking for. So I have two examples of search engines here, but when you look at them, it's so much easier when you go to Google to figure out, you know, what you're supposed to do. You basically only have one option. From a usability perspective, Google is very, very easy to use. You type in your query and you click the button and then you get your results. Yahoo's a little bit more crowded, and I would say that they've become less and less you know, of a search engine because they promote their search so much less than the Google search does. There's so much information on this website. So don't clutter your website with too much information or graphics, or there'll be nowhere for your eye to go on the page. Another thing to keep in mind with the design of a website is that website conventions are all of our friends. They keep us comfortable and safe, as I was talking about, in terms of our navigation of sites. So of course there's a standard kind of layout of a website, and I think we should all use it. There's no reason not to use it. The banner goes at the top, the navigation is either at the side or at the top. The content is in the middle here, and at the bottom we're used to finding contact and miscellaneous information. I think, you know, there's no reason to not use this convention. Anytime you don't, people have to spend time thinking about how they're going to engage with your site, and that's not what you want. You want them to find the information they need. A note on this, I think that the top navigation is becoming increasingly common. So it used to be that people from a usability, the field of usability would caution against a top navigation, but I think it's becoming increasingly used and increasingly, you know, less confusing for people. Another thing that I find that is becoming an increasing convention is the use of graphics along the right side of the body area to point to people to key information that almost little advertisements for other key information on the site. So those are other conventions that I think people are getting used to. But in general, if you've got this main structure, then most people who visit your site will be very comfortable.